In a world where political battles rage, where cultural wars divide, and where truth itself feels slippery, one question cuts through the noise. Why does Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, openly and unapologetically say he follows Jesus? It is a question that pierces beyond politics and dives into the soul of the man himself. For Kirk, following Jesus is not just a personal decision. It is a countercultural act, a rebellion against a system he believes thrives on moral decay, spiritual emptiness, and cultural confusion. And in his speeches, interviews, and writings, Charlie Kirk explains why Jesus is not just his savior, but also his guide in navigating the modern battlefield of ideas. Charlie Kirk's journey into public faith is rooted in his background. Born in 1993 in the suburbs of Chicago, Kirk was raised in a relatively comfortable, middle-class environment. But unlike many political commentators who entered the public stage through Ivy League credentials, Kirk took a different path. He turned down college, choosing instead to dedicate his life to building Turning Point USA, a conservative student organization he founded in 2012 when he was just 18 years old. From its humble beginnings, TPUSA has exploded into one of the largest and most influential conservative groups in the United States, boasting chapters on thousands of campuses. But with influence came criticism, hostility, and attacks, both personal and ideological. It was in this crucible that Kirk leaned on his Christian faith, explaining time and again why he follows Jesus. When Charlie Kirk says he follows Jesus, he frames it not as blind tradition but as the embrace of truth itself. He frequently references the biblical verse from John 14:6 where Jesus declares, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." For Kirk, this is not abstract theology. It is the central claim of reality. In a culture that says your truth and my truth are equally valid, he insists that objective truth exists and that it is found in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. Kirk often points to the moral chaos of our age, gender ideology, the decline of the family, rampant consumerism, and the rise of nihilism, as proof of what happens when a society turns away from God. He explains that following Jesus gives him not only personal peace, but also a framework to understand right from wrong, order from disorder, and meaning from meaninglessness. Kirk has often admitted that his faith journey deepened as he matured, especially as he realized the emptiness of worldly success. By his early 20s, he had already achieved what most young men only dream of: political influence, media appearances, a powerful network of donors, and millions of followers. Yet, he has said in interviews that something was missing. Success could not fill the void that only Christ could. In one particularly powerful moment, he explained that no amount of fame or influence could answer life's most pressing questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of all this? He turned to Jesus for those answers, and in that turning, he found purpose that transcended politics. For Kirk, following Jesus also means embracing courage. Christianity, he explains, is not a call to passivity, but to boldness in the face of hostility. When critics accuse him of mixing religion with politics, he counters that faith cannot be compartmentalized. If Jesus is Lord, then he is Lord of all, over government, culture, economics, and even education. This conviction drives his outspoken defense of Christian values in the public square. Whether it's protecting the unborn, defending marriage as between a man and a woman, or safeguarding religious liberty. For Kirk, following Jesus is not simply about private prayer, but about public witness. He frequently reminds audiences that the early Christians were not persecuted because they worshipped quietly, but because they declared Jesus is Lord in a world that demanded allegiance to Caesar. Kirk's explanation of why he follows Jesus often touches on gratitude for America itself. He sees the United States as a nation uniquely founded on biblical principles, from the belief in God-given rights to the recognition that human beings are inherently flawed and in need of accountability. In his view, abandoning Jesus is not only a personal tragedy, but also a national one. He warns that as America drifts from its Judeo-Christian roots, it risks collapsing into tyranny or chaos. Thus, following Jesus is also about preserving the nation he loves, ensuring that future generations inherit a country grounded in moral clarity rather than moral relativism. The personal side of Kirk's testimony also comes through when he talks about forgiveness. In a political world filled with bitterness, revenge, and endless cycles of outrage, he has admitted that without Jesus, it would be easy to harden his heart against enemies. But the message of the gospel, that Christ forgives sinners and commands his followers to forgive others, challenges him to resist bitterness. He has shared that this is not easy, especially when opponents attack his faith, his family, or his mission. Yet it is precisely in those moments, he explains, that following Jesus becomes real. It is not a theory but a practice, a daily discipline of humility and surrender. Charlie Kirk also points to the intellectual foundation of Christianity as a reason he follows Jesus. While critics dismiss faith as irrational, Kirk argues that Christianity provides the most coherent explanation for reality. He has said that science alone cannot answer the deepest questions of human existence. Evolution might explain biological processes, but it cannot explain why human beings have inherent dignity, why morality exists, or why beauty moves the soul. For him, only Christianity provides satisfying answers. Humans are made in the image of God, morality flows from divine law, and beauty reflects the Creator's design. Following Jesus, then, is not just an emotional choice but an intellectual one, a rational alignment with truth. In many speeches, Kirk acknowledges the cost of discipleship. Following Jesus has meant enduring ridicule, being called a theocrat or religious extremist, and losing potential allies who are uncomfortable with faith in politics. But he insists the cost is worth it. He often references Jesus' words in Matthew 16:26. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? For Kirk, no political victory, no media spotlight, no personal gain compares to the eternal significance of following Christ. There is also a pastoral side to Kirk's explanations. At events like Turning Point Faith, an initiative he launched to mobilize churches, he speaks directly to young people searching for meaning. He tells them that he understands the temptations they face, addiction, despair, confusion about identity, and he points them toward Jesus as the answer. In his words, politics can change laws, but only Jesus can change hearts. This dual message, cultural engagement combined with spiritual renewal, has become the heartbeat of his work. He believes America's revival will not come merely through elections, but through a return to Christ. Charlie Kirk explains that his decision to follow Jesus is not about perfection but about direction. He admits that he is flawed, that he struggles, and that he falls short. But he emphasizes that Christianity is not about earning God's favor through works. It is about grace, receiving what we do not deserve because of what Jesus accomplished on the cross. This message of grace is what keeps him grounded even as he navigates the storms of public life. When he is criticized, when he makes mistakes, when he feels overwhelmed, he returns to the simple truth: Jesus died for sinners, and that includes him. Perhaps the most dramatic aspect of Kirk's explanation is his insistence that following Jesus is not optional for a society that wants to survive. He frames Christianity as the foundation of Western civilization, the bedrock upon which freedom, justice, and prosperity rest. He warns that rejecting Christ is not just a private act but a public disaster, leading to cultural collapse. In his view, every generation must decide: follow Jesus and preserve truth, or reject him and descend into chaos. For Charlie Kirk, the choice is clear. He follows Jesus not only for his own soul but for the future of America. And so, when Charlie Kirk explains why he follows Jesus, he is not merely sharing a private testimony. He is making a public declaration of allegiance, a call to arms in a spiritual battle that transcends politics. He follows Jesus because Jesus is the truth in an age of lies, the light in a world of darkness, and the hope in a culture of despair. It is this conviction that animates his work, sustains his courage, and defines his legacy. And it is why, no matter the cost, Charlie Kirk will continue to say, "I follow Jesus."